Thank you, Jim. It's so exciting and always so incredibly awe-inspiring to be able to start any event with an opportunity to actually just sit and listen and absorb to the place and space that you're with. So I'd actually like to start today just by acknowledging this room of incredible human beings who have decided to set their life's ambition towards helping other people, who they know that by collaborating, by innovating together, and by pursuing a very strong focus on patient at the centre of the equation, you can make the biggest difference. So I probably shouldn't say this, but actually looking at this room today, you are literally some of the most exciting people I get to meet. And please know that I am in awe of everything that you do, and I'm incredibly grateful for everything that you do. I would describe myself as someone who's been a very long-term advocate for individuals, whether it be individuals in the spaces that they live, so the way their communities are constructed, through to individuals and the care that they may need or the help that they may need. I'm particularly motivated to try and assist those that are most vulnerable within our society. And I believe that because I was fundamentally raised to believe that any community or society is only as strong as its most vulnerable, and therefore there is an opportunity for all of us to always be looking to how we can help others. I want to particularly acknowledge how important it is to be standing here today, speaking with you all as the oldest research institute in the state of New South Wales. That cannot be underestimated in terms of its importance, and it can also not be underestimated in terms of the message that it sends about the work the Kolling Institute has been doing for over 100 years now. Now, the really exciting thing about being a part of something like that is that you have heritage. The challenge of being a part of something like that is how do you continue to push yourselves to go beyond what you have achieved in the past, to continue to achieve things further in the future. And I want to congratulate you on the 5-year research strategy that you announced and the fact that you are now that 3-year mark in and really taking that opportunity to grow those bubbles, as Jim talked about, to increase those connections and focus in on your mid-tier talent. What I would like to say is I really wish that that was the attitude of Australian government, because I think that as a nation we would be in a far better place if we could move from a position when it comes to politicking of being bound by a 3-year election cycle, which is predominantly driven by who's going to win the next election, to actually moving beyond that mindset and into a place and space where as a society, as an economy, as a community, we begin to put down some longer term measures for what we want to be and where we want to go. I also want to just acknowledge that the variance of people in this room is truly exciting. And excuse me just while I read. The fact that we've got people here today from the NSLHD board, from the Kolling Governance Committee, senior university reps, industry partners, consumers, people with lived experiences, those who are supporting this important work through funding and government contacts is incredibly important. Incredibly important. And it might surprise you to know that it is also often not done. So in my experience in government recently, what I have found in the last 18 months of being in that room is that unfortunately, many discussions when it comes to the level of public policy are siloed. That you end up hearing very robust arguments for reform in a particular area, but what is frequently lacking is the perspective of, well, what would happen to other sections if we pursue reform in that area? For myself personally, it seems something that just makes sense. You know, we do it as people who live our lives, who seek to build community. We operate that way every day because we know that really it is only a 2-year-old who thinks the whole world operates around them and the only thing they want to do. So I've really enjoyed being North Sydney's representative in Canberra over the course of the last 18 months because it's allowed me to bring what I think is some of that common sense thinking into that place, which is called Parliament House in Canberra. 2 examples I wanted to share with you on that are in the areas of youth mental health and actually women's safety. So immediately prior to entering politics, I was actually working in the area of youth mental health. And I was in that space because I have 3 children of my own. I have a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. My 16-year-old is here with me today. Maeve is on work experience. So she's getting to see the world, the big wide world. But what really struck me as we came through 2020 was the fact that Maeve's generation and our children's generation are turning themselves into a world which is unlike any we have seen. The use of technology, the degradation of our climate, the rising global conflict. These kids are literally growing up under pressures that for me as a child of the 70s, I was barely aware existed. It's quite frightening when you look at the statistics about the prevalence of poor mental health amongst young Australians, with recent data showing that children as young as 9 are experiencing incredibly high levels of distress. They don't know what their future looks like. So as I entered Parliament, what I took upon myself was to actually bring that lived experience and to bring those people who are advocating in that space into that building. Because while you would say that governments over many successive governments have talked about unpacking mental health, the reality is that we remain at some of the highest rates of mental health distress across our community. The first step in that was a showcase. We actually hosted a showcase of some 50 to 70 mental health care organisations in Parliament about a month ago now. And I'm incredibly excited to say we actually ended up with about 50 to 60 parliamentarians who came along to listen and learn. Those people were able to talk to that room about the research that's taking place, about the service delivery that's being developed. And the parliamentarians were able to actually sit and listen to real world experience in terms of what impact that research and that practices were having on those young people. On the other side of that, then, what we did is we produced a booklet which provided a summary of all of the work being done by all of those organisations, and then we personally delivered it to every parliamentarian, every senator in the building and asked them to take it home. Not only did we have impact on the day, but since, that single stone that was dropped has created a ripple effect. And I'm incredibly warmed by the thought that what subsequently happened is that other people just like me have now connected with those organisations that operate within their communities. They're actively seeking to support them. They're sharing that booklet now around their communities, because often just overcoming that initial barrier of where do I get the information from is something that is hard to do. The second example I just thought I'd share with you is the area of women's safety. In Australia at the moment, one woman is killed by her intimate partner every 5 days. One woman every 5 days in this country is killed by her intimate partner. We know this. This is not groundbreaking news. We've seen the incidents of violence in our community increasing over the course of the last 5 to 10 years, but again, it is as if government is impotent to actually be able to move. How do we move in this space? And when I first entered the parliamentary process, what struck me is, again, there were all these conversations happening in silos. So in the last 2 months, we convened a summit in Canberra where we brought in those people who were able to talk to us about what was happening for people who were being put at risk through the economic frame, what was happening for them through the legal frame, what was happening for them through the society frame. And that group of people, what was meant to be an hour-long conversation, turned into taking pretty much half a day, which you would expect it to, and as it should do. But actually there was this real moment of, it was like an ignition point. It was that moment where they all looked at each other and said, wow, we've been talking about this in this room while you've been talking about that in that room. But when we get together and truly listen to each other, look at what we can actually achieve. This is an incredible moment. And so we've now seen the government launch its new strategy for improving safety across our community. And you'll continue to see myself and other members on the crossbench advocate in that space really strongly. I want to just take a moment to say that I do think we are on a pivotal tipping point for our community. We are being challenged to evolve as a species. And from what I see, from where I stand, we are being given 2 courses of action. One action is to act like the ostrich and stick our head in the sand and focus on those that are most closely connected to us. And that is the politics of division. That is the politics that encourages us to stay small, to be fearful, to close our borders and to close our minds to others who may need our help. On the other hand, we have what I call the politics of the possible, which is where as a species we recognise our capacity to learn from each other. We recognise that actually the greatest skill any person can have and the greatest strength we have is the capacity to listen. Listening is highly underrated in my experience. And I look at your room today and what I see is a group of people who are determined and committed to listen. And for that, I thank you. This government is listening. You know, we saw at the last budget the release of our first ever wellbeing framework for our country. Was it perfect? Not by a long shot. But at least it was a go. We're having a go. We're considering how things might be done differently in the future. And that wellbeing budget, the first challenge to it will actually be from people like yourselves who look at it critically and go, it's fabulous to have these headlines, but what are the multiple indicators that will actually start to drive some of those measures? And what does it mean to be fully embracing the concept of well-being in this country? So again, please know that from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I don't just thank you as myself, I thank you on behalf of every single human being who has ever benefited from the work that you do, because that is what you do. I imagine sometimes you stand in labs and there's slides and there's research meetings, but at the end of the day, you are helping people. People just like me, people just like the women we used to support through the McGrath Foundation, kids like I used to work with at Camp Quality. And those people have hope because of the work, the conversations, and the listening that you do. So please, stay committed to your innovation, stay committed to pushing the boundaries, and just know you have many, many fans out there, and I am one of them. So thank you.